Beneath the shimmering sapphire waves of the Alaris Sea, where glowing coral towers stood like underwater lanterns, and the very tides were shaped by song, lived Princess Nerina, the youngest and most curious daughter of the Sea King. While her sisters found joy in pearl dances and grand ocean feasts, Nerina's gaze was always turned upward. She would spend her days near the surface, listening to the muffled, distorted echoes of the human world above, a world she had never seen but was utterly captivated by. She was fascinated by the stories whispered on the current stelaes of warm sunlight, of dancing fire, and of fragile human hearts that lived for only a fleeting moment, yet burned with a passion and meaning that was unknown to her kind. Merfolk were said to be eternal, their lives stretching on for centuries, bound to the sea, but their existence was finite. Upon death, their souls would simply fade into nothingness, like a ripple in the water. Humans, though their lives were heartbreakingly short, were rumored to possess something extraordinary: immortal souls. It was a mystery, a paradox, and Nerina longed to understand it more than anything else. On the day of her 10th tide turning, a rite of passage allowed her to finally visit the surface. Nerina swam upwards into a world of chaos. A violent storm was raging, tearing the sky apart with jagged bolts of lightning. The waves, once gentle, now crashed like falling mountains, churning the sea into a furious, dark abyss. Amid this terrifying spectacle, she saw a human ship, its wooden frame groaning and splintering under the assault of the storm. And then she saw him, a young human prince, thrown from the deck, unconscious and sinking into the cold depths. Without a moment's hesitation, ignoring the dangers of the storm and the laws of her people, Nerina dove towards him. Her heart pounded with a feeling she had never known as she wrapped her arms around him, pulling him back towards the churning surface. She fought against the relentless waves, her strength fueled by a sudden, fierce protectiveness, until she finally dragged him to the safety of a sandy shore. Exhausted, she retreated into the shadows of the rocks, watching as his people found him, relieved and grateful. As she watched him stir, as she saw the life return to his face, her own world shifted forever. The stories were no longer enough. The muffled echoes from above were no longer enough. She returned to her father's kingdom beneath the waves, knowing one undeniable truth: she could no longer live a life separate from the world above. The face of the prince was etched into her memory, and her heart now belonged to a world she could not touch. Driven by this desperate new love, Nerina sought out the one being in the entire ocean who could grant her impossible desire. Deep in the darkest, most forbidding trench, where sunlight never reached and forgotten fears dwelled, lived Morwena, the Sea Witch. Morwena was an ancient, powerful entity who trafficked in desire, whose currency was pain and whose bargains were always irreversible. With a trembling but determined heart, Nerina presented her wish. The Sea Witch smiled, a chilling sight in the crushing dark, and offered her a terrible, beautiful bargain. Nerina could have what she wanted. She would gain human legs, the ability to walk upon the land and seek out her prince. But the price was immense. For one, every single step she took on those new legs would feel like walking on shattered glass, a constant, searing pain. For another, she would have to surrender her voice, the beautiful, magical voice of a mermaid, the very source of her power and identity. And finally, the most terrible condition of all: if the prince she loved chose to marry another, then at the first light of dawn after his wedding day, Nerina would dissolve into sea foam, her existence wiped away forever. The chance for an immortal soul for love was a gamble that cost everything. And still Nerina agreed. The price for her dream was sacrifice, and she was willing to pay it. As the sun's first rays pierced the ocean surface, the magic took hold. Nerina rose from the waves, her shimmering tail shattering into two human legs in a flash of agonizing light. She collapsed on the shore, trembling, mute, and utterly alone. It was there that she was found by the very prince she had saved. He saw a beautiful, mysterious young woman, seemingly shipwrecked and unable to speak. Charmed by her gentle eyes and graceful presence, he welcomed her into his royal court. He was kind to her, but he never recognized her. He had only a blurry memory of his rescue, a dreamlike image of a maiden in the storm. Nerina's new life was a paradox of joy and sorrow. She walked beside the prince, her feet screaming in silent agony with every step. She danced for him at royal gatherings, her movements a beautiful lie concealing her torment. She listened as he spoke of his life, his dreams, his gratitude for the unknown woman who saved him, all while she was unable to utter a single word to tell him the truth. Her love was pure, patient, and all-consuming, but it was unspoken. And slowly, heartbreakingly, she watched as his affections began to drift toward a human princess from a neighboring kingdom, a woman he believed was a more suitable match. As the day of the prince's wedding was announced, despair washed over Nerina. Her time was running out. One evening, as she stood by the shore, her sisters rose from the waves, their eyes red with weeping. They had made their own terrible sacrifice. They had traded their beautiful long hair to the sea witch in exchange for one final chance to save their sister. They held out an enchanted dagger, its blade gleaming coldly in the moonlight. "Kill the prince before sunrise," they whispered, their voices filled with anguish. "Let his blood touch your feet, and you'll become a mermaid once more. You can return to us. You can return to the sea." That night, dagger in hand, Nerina crept into the prince's chamber. He was sleeping peacefully, a gentle smile on his lips. She stood over him, the instrument of her salvation in her hand. She could save herself. She could end her pain. She could go home. But as she looked at his face, she remembered the boy in the storm, the kindness in his eyes, the love that had set her on this impossible path. And in that moment, she made her final choice. She chose love over survival. She chose his life over her own. Casting the dagger into the sea, Nerina walked back to the shore as the sky began to lighten with the coming dawn. This was it. She stepped into the cool waves, closing her eyes, expecting to feel her body dissolve, to fade into the ephemeral foam of the ocean. But something else happened. The sea itself, the ancient and powerful force she had once called home, had witnessed her journey. It had heard her silent, selfless love. Because Nerina had loved without selfishness, without demand, and had chosen kindness even in the face of her own demise, the ocean rewarded her courage. Instead of dissolving into nothingness, her form began to change. She became lighter than air, her body transforming into a translucent, ethereal essence. She had become a daughter of the air, a gentle spirit, now free to roam between the sea and the sky. She hadn't gained an immortal soul just yet, but she was now on the path to earn one, through kindness and unseen good deeds, free from the pain of her human form. The prince, for the rest of his days, would often feel a gentle, inexplicable breeze as he walked by the shore, a soft caress on his cheek, as though someone was watching over him, keeping him safe. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more tales like this one.